Anyway, I'll figure it out.
We're all. Okay, so this is a writing class. I'm gonna give you a writing tool. My wife loves pens. So she ordered 300 of these and then she complained about them and she got another 300.
Oh, man.
But they're good pens. You just didn't like the fact that you put them in your pocket. If you leave the tip out there, they leak in your pocket. But they're good pens. They're really good. So.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Yeah, we got it. No, you have to turn them in the end of class. No, you're wrong. Okay. So I guess we should go ahead. Like I've did 3 classes 2 times, so this is my 6th class. And I'm having a hard time keeping my mouth moist. Drink a little more water, you'll understand. Anyway, if the 3 presentations I did, this QR code on the board will give you those PowerPoint. I did one on using StoryWorth, then one on the digital documents that are available in Maricopa County Museum, and then this one just on writing the story if you don't use StoryWorth. But when it comes, just so you know, I love to write. And I learned that when I was in high school. I had a high school creative writing teacher who was named Mrs. Neal. And I learned that I really liked to write. And then I went off to school, and when I was at BYU, I found out I could come back and take an extra year, and I want to take the classes I really want to take. So I went back and I took, paleontology, and then I took technical writing. That was the best class I've ever taken in terms of writing. Found out this is really how you write. So then I went off to grad school and found out you had to write journal articles, you had to write a dissertation, and all. I liked it. I did not. So I wrote a lot of journal articles. I've also been an editor for a scientific journal, and so I read a lot of stuff, read a lot of student papers, and so I have a passion for writing. And when I was in California one time, on one job, I thought I was going to, there was a man down there who had written some agricultural textbooks I really liked. And he invited me to come down and take over the writing because he was old. And he got down there, and after 3 years, it didn't work. So when I walked out of his office after I said I'm done, he said, "Well, you'll never write another book." I've written 12. So, maybe there's a challenge in that. One of my books kicked his book out of Texas. So anyway, you never say never, right? And so I've just done a lot of writing. It is a craft, and you can all do it. And that's what I want to do is talk to you about that today and the way you can do it. The first presentation I gave this morning was using StoryWorth. Did you hear StoryWorth? Okay, have anybody signed up for it? Okay, well, this is my book from StoryWorth. And my daughter signed me up for it. And I was kind of neglecting it, and then I thought, oh, it's coming up to renewal, I better get in here and get it done. I found out I really enjoyed it. I wrote 66 prompts, and the prompts are in the book, that's a published book now. And I enjoy reading it myself when I go back. And they did a really nice job of binding it, and it's expensive, that's $79. And so what I did was because I wanted to give each of my grandchildren and children, my own grandchildren, one to give them a copy. So I had something half on. So I did a lot of publishing with Lulu. This Lulu.com, it's over here on the board. They are a print on demand, and they'll print 1 book, 2 books, whatever you want. You can take the PDF that you get from StoryWorth, upload it to Lulu, and design your book. I'll put this on the front because it's normal to me. Put this on the back because that was my horse when I grew up. And again, it's all color. Let's just find the inside of that. We'll go to a soft cover. It's a pretty classic book. This is $40. So $40, and it's 226 pages. Not bad. You can do that through Lulu, and they have a lot of guides out there to teach you how to upload your PDF. So it's worth it to do, if you want to print more than one book, if you want to do it. Okay? All right, so that's about me and why I do this. And like I say, all the presentations I've given today are in that QR code. So you can download them, you're welcome to use them. There's some history in Minidoka County about building the dam and about discovering water on the north side. And then some digital resources that are available, have to use them. And then one of them's about Storyworth, it has focused on Storyworth, and this is focused on just writing. Okay? So I'm a teacher. Actually, this is my classroom. Yeah, so people come up to me all the time and say, "You still teach?" I'm not really sure what that means. Like, are you too old? Are you crazy or what? No, I love it. I still teach and I really enjoy it. And I teach in this room in a food science class, teach anatomy and physiology. And it's, I figure if you get to this point, you've got all these experiences. And why not go to work, right? So gives you a lot to write about too. Everybody has a story. I figured that out for my students. So being an instructor, we always start off with learning objectives. This is what you're going to learn today. You're going to learn how the importance of writing your personal history. And the most important thing is, when we die, you're going to get a headstone. And the headstone is going to have your name, your birth date, and your death date. That's all the writing there's going to be about you then. There's going to be this thing called the dash between the two. That's your life. So what you're writing about is your dash. There's a book called It's All About the Dash. So you're writing about your dash, and that's what's so important, because I did this so that my grandchildren, my children would know. I have children that are too young to really know my parents. So I got to write about my parents in there. The other interesting thing is, during some of the stuff we were doing, we lived in Canada for a while. And when we were in Canada, we were on social medicine, babies would have been free. We had 4 when we moved up there. And you think we'd have any kids while we were in Canada? No. When we moved to California, guess what? We had a child right off. But there's this separation in our family. And so we've got these older kids and younger kids. And when you listen to them talk, the younger would say, well, my dad or my mom, and the older would say, my mom or my, it's like talking about 2 different people. But it's the difference in the experiences they've had with us. So we decided, Marilyn and I decided to write a book called Things You Didn't Know About Your Parents. And that's what got us started on the family history. So we've written 55 stories there. And I've used some of those stories in this story. So anyway, it's for my kids so they know what experiences they missed. So that's what got us started. So you're going to learn some techniques for writing and organizing your story. You're going to discover how to make your writing so it's engaged and meaningful. That's the most important thing, that you have to be able to want somebody else to read it. The greatest compliment is if you set it down and you come back to it 3 weeks later or a week later, you read it and say, wow, I wrote that, that sounds really good. Then you know you've done a great job. It will happen. And practice using the active voice, because too many of us and all the people I hear use the passive voice. And passive it's hard to read. And for example, I had an email the other day and it said, I have received your package. Well, get rid of the have. I received your package. I don't care. You know, have is really passive. So I say, look for the haves and was and wasn't and it was, and get rid of it. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So you're going to write in the active voice, and you're going to, I tell people to write type. So why bother? You're going to preserve your memories. You all have unique memories. And I have a book, it's called Moments Matter. You can look in your life and you can tell about some moments that were really important in your life. We forget a lot of stuff happened. But I guarantee you that during your lifetime, you've had some really important moments that you can remember. You need to tell somebody about those. So it gives you a chance to reflect. I think it's almost therapeutic. I would say that when I wrote these things, it was therapeutic to kind of give me the time to reflect and see how I felt about that after so many years have passed. Chance to inspire others. I hope that you inspire others in a good way. My grandson picked this, my oldest grandson picked it up after I wrote it, and he called me up, he read the book in a day and a half. He said, Grandpa, that was really good. I said, well, what was your favorite story? He said, well, I like the one where you got picked up in high school and you lost your driver's license. But there was a lesson to it. It was more than that. He got the lesson out of it. So, you know, those are things that you can inspire your project with. And then you create a legacy. Nobody else is going to leave a legacy behind for you. I still use a lot of electronic copy, a lot of electronic stuff I use. I still like to print the book. And you know, you can always digitize a book, but you can never, you don't usually do it in reverse. So anyway, I like that legacy you can leave behind. Something that's unique, and I make sure my grandkids, as they get married, they get a copy. So what makes a great moment? These memorable events. Gives you a chance to think back, what are the things that shaped your life? What moments can you remember that were memorable in your life? Organize it around themes. You can organize it around your family, timelines, whatever you want to do. But this book, because when I pick up a book, I want to just open it up and say, oh, I like, you know, I'm on page 63, I want to read this. I like to be able to just pick up a book and read one story and not have anything I have to read, you know, chronologically. That's just me. So this book isn't even organized by timeline. This book is organized by just whenever I got the prompt and decided to write. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you could, it makes it easy for people to read. Honesty, you're gonna find that sometimes you don't want to be totally honest. There's some things I wouldn't put in a book, but also be honest, and be honest about, don't flower up and make things sound better than they really were. Some people, you know, I'm always amazed when I go to a funeral and I listen to them. Is that person really that way? You know, I don't want anybody writing my obituary. I'm just gonna say, I'm married, I had kids, and I died, you know? But you get flowered up quite a bit. And I think you need to be really honest and authentic with what you write. And you be true. And then the other is reflect on what lessons you've learned. It's not about the experiences so much as it is about your character. What made you you? That's what's important. Because nobody else is going to have the same experiences or know what built your character. So, how do you begin? I would say look at your moments in your life, make a list of them, maybe who influenced you. I can think of, I've told the last group that when I left here, I went to college, and went to Rick's, it was that time, it was Rick's College. And I went there, I wasn't even going to go to college. The only reason I went is somebody said, well, there's more girls than guys there. That sounds like a plan. So I got there, and it was kind of a lie anyway. But I took an anatomy and physiology class from a Dr. Louder. And I still remember this day, that moment. I wrote about it in my book. I remember the day he walked in to class and he started his class. He says, I'm sorry, I'm just a little bit late, but I've been taking care of my research. And then he said, what my research, he said, told us what his research was on. He says, I'm researching scours in baby calves. I thought, I know about that. I'm raising baby calves and I've seen scours and I've struggled with it. And I thought, at that moment, I thought, that's really cool. You go on and get a PhD and do something like that. That changed my whole life, right then and there. That one little moment. I went on and got my PhD in reproductive physiology, and I've never looked back from that. It was a great experience. I went back and thanked him years later, told him how much that changed my life, just that one comment. So those are the kind of things that change your life. So what challenges? What do you do? We all have challenges. How'd you overcome them? What lessons did you learn from that challenge? What are you proud of? What accomplishments have you created, or what are you proud of? What do you feel good about? You can list your birth, your education. One of them said, is there anything unique about your birth? Yeah, I was born in the winter of 49. They had to plow the roads so my mother could get into town and have me. She actually moved into town because snow was going to keep her away from 2 8 miles out of town. Write about your education, your marriage, how'd you meet your spouse? What's unique about your spouse, your career? Other thing I use is I use photos. Photos remind us of stuff that happened to us, and you don't create the story of it. I use photos of, we have photo albums, we all have photo albums. You go back and look at some of those, and this on the back of this horse, Goldie. My dad bought this when I was 10 years old. And she was really important because there was horseback riding with my cousin. I lived on the river. I had a lot of great experiences with that horse. And that horse lived long enough when I brought my wife home to meet my future wife home to meet my parents, where she is, my future wife. She rode the horse. How about that? So anyway, that's important, and it generated a lot of stories from that. So I use photos to get some idea of what I'm, some ideas of what to write about. I use writing prompts. Now, if you subscribe to Storyworth, we're going to give you writing prompts. But you can modify those writing prompts to make them yours. Or whoever subscribed you to Storyworth can modify them for you. My daughter subscribed me, and yes, the questions I knew were particularly what she wanted about. So I'm going to show you, this is just some ideas of what the prompts look like. They're categorized here. There's some more categories of prompts, but I've got a list of over 600 prompts. And you can get that list right there. And it's 600 writing prompts you can get that will help you with some ideas of what to write about. It's in a PDF and you can download it. You can use that QR code or you can use the URL. It's Adobe Online. I put them all in the PDF. And they're just some that I found and I've used, and my daughters used them. And they're really helpful. You can modify it, make them more of what you want. You get it all out? Work? Okay. I love QR codes. I use them everywhere. Okay. So use your prompts. So structure, start in chronological order, where you don't have to have any order at all. Organized by theme. You're gonna talk about your family, talk about your career, talk about your personal growth. About teaching class for so many years, I found out everybody has a story. I always like the students to I like to get to their story. So talk about what changed in your life. I like key moments. Focus on your turning points. Lessons. And experiences that change your direction. Make your chapters short because nobody likes to read long chapters, I can tell you. I found that out when I started with textbooks. Kids don't read long textbooks. They don't read long chapters. Chapters in my textbook are about 4 pages long. A lot of white space, so it doesn't look overwhelming. That's the way to write. Tips for engagement. Show, don't tell. Okay. Use some descriptive words that paint a picture in the reader's mind. Be very specific. Make sure you have the names right. I got to a point that one of the questions was, what was your favorite music? Well, I had a lot of favorite songs because the 60s was a great time for music, right? We'll all agree. You might know. Yeah, but you listen to all the movies. The movies use 60 music. So I couldn't remember every single song and who the artists were. So I Googled and I found out some of the songs. Oh yeah, I remember that one. So I put it in a list there of the songs that I liked. And it was, you can use other tools. You don't have to remember everything. The other thing is one of the questions in there was what was your favorite TV station, your favorite TV show growing up? Well, that was easy because we had 3 channels. And the TV went off at midnight. And then it didn't come on until early morning. If you got up Saturday morning and watched the cartoons, this is what you got, right? You sat around and wait for the cartoons to come on. Kids don't understand that now, so I thought it was important for the kids to know this because TV never goes off. So I put this in here and talked about how the shows were limited and channels were limited. They have no idea of that, so that was why it was important. So use other things to write your story. Give a dialogue, like dialogue with Dr. Louder and what I learned from him. and share your feelings. No, you don't have to, share them on a shirt sleeve, but, you can share how you really felt about that. How you really felt about when you met your spouse, how you really felt about your first child, when that child was born, and some other things, there's a lot of things they need to know you're real. And the only way people know you're real is when you share stories with them and share your emotions. Okay, so this is one of my pet peeves. Use the active voice. The award was received by me. I received the award, right? It's also more, it's more concise. And that makes your writing easy to read. So you always want to use the active voice. Here's some examples again. I overcame the challenge versus the challenge was overcome by me. I pick up any kind of writing, I pick it up, first thing I do is I look for was, have, had, and it was. And you can change those sentences really easy. So we're gonna have a little quick lesson on writing in the active voice and why it's important. All right? So you need to understand the difference. And the biggest difference is anytime you see the word have, had, and has, and was, along with another verb, you can bet you can streamline it by crossing it out. So you recognize it. You want it, why it's essential? It makes your writing easier to read. And you can practice doing revisions. You could write something, what I don't want you to do is decide I'm gonna write and then start worrying about active and passive voice, then worry about whether or not I've used wordy phrases. That comes later. That's the revisions. You get the stuff on paper first. Then you come back and look for these things. So this is why it's important. It's clear, it's more engaging, and it makes it more personal. Because when you say the award was received by me, that's not real personal. But when you say I received the award, that's a lot more personal, right? Here's some good ones. The active voice I wrote the report as opposed to the report was written by me. Believe it or not, people do this all the time. And the biggest culprit is the haves and the has. There we go. Clarity, engagement, and ownership. That's why you use the active voice. So, active or passive? Passive. Active or passive? You can take the I and say Rick or John or whatever. You don't have to say I did this. And again, another passive one, and then another active. But if I said, I was able to travel to Europe last year, well, that's passive. I traveled to Europe last year. Or some people say, I have traveled to Europe. Why not say, I traveled to Europe? Rick traveled to Europe. Something like that. It makes it just more readable. Well, that makes me a little busier than Okay, so this is my wife in the back there, Marilyn, and she helped me with this PowerPoint presentation. She is from California, City Girl, but she's fully countrified right now. She's been here, so she was really proud of herself when she realized the subtle meaning in this one. All right, so it's clear, engaging, and the active voice puts you in the center of the story. And so she wanted to show us what the center is. Right? Center of it. I thought it was pretty clear. She did too. Okay. I was telling them, when I started doing classes, I used to have to use a carousel and slides. And that was how I did presentations. They were a pain to develop. Or I used an overhead projector like one sitting on the floor over there. What a pain. Now with PowerPoint, oh, so many things you can do. And writing your history. Marilyn typed my dissertation. And I can tell you when you make an error when you type, the old way you had to use an eraser, erasable on paper, where you got the whiteout out and typed over it. Or if somebody like me came back to Marilyn and said, hey Marilyn, that paragraph on page 2 really belongs on page 4. What are you gonna do? Well, when you retype the whole thing, you do literal cut and paste. So when computers came out, saved my marriage. I don't know. So anyway, it's that you've got great tools to use. With the computer, you can incorporate pictures, putting pictures in things now. Man, it used to be a pain to put in pictures. You used to have a light table, you wanted to shrink it down, you had to take a picture of it and shrink it with a camera. And now you can just pull on the edge and shrink it. So, what are the 3 benefits of using the active voice? Remember what they are? It's your quiz. Third, engaging. And one more. And ownership. Okay, personalization, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so again, you can turn that one around very easily. I completed the project in record time. Rick completed the project. We spot the difference. There's some more passive voice examples. A lot of these are all was. And there's the active version of them. I received a trophy. Every case, it's less words. But talking about less words, this is another pet peeve right here. Wordy phrasing. For 20 years, I was the editor of a journal, scientific journal. They are the worst when it comes to coming up with wordy phrases. I can't tell you how many times I read due to the fact that in their papers, or in spite of the fact that, with the exception of, they always did it. So when I get these documents that I was supposed to be the editor for, I put the search on my word, and I go through and search for the word that. And 9 times out of 10, it was connected to a wordy phrase. So I go back and I put in one of these one-word phrases and change it. And it made all the difference in the world. So that's another one that is really easy to fall into, because we hear these phrases all the time, and then we start using them. I have a theory too, that things started in high school when you were told to write a 5,000 word article. So how many more words can I get if I use this, right? So anyway, I have a good friend that when he was in journal editing before me, he always said, write typed. That means make it nice and concise. Now, I like to remember Mark Twain. He wrote a letter to a friend. At the bottom of the letter, he said, I'm sorry this letter's so long. I didn't have time to write a short one. And when you think about it, writing is difficult to make it nice and concise. So there's a lot of truth to that. Write type and make it short, make it concise. I was telling the other group that I took a business writing class, and in the business writing class, some of you remember when the space shuttle blew up on launch? All right, so that was due to some O-rings. Well, he showed us the memo that had been written, months before that ever happened. And if looking back on reading that memo, you could see that they were trying to tell you that the O-rings there's going to be a problem with the weather and the problem with the cold. But it was so vague in the letter, this memo that was written, it went on for a page and a half. Nobody knew it. But looking at it later, you can see, yeah, that was a problem. So that's the other thing. Be very clear with your writing. Don't let the reader guess what you're trying to tell. Nobody likes that. And that was kind of like, well, yeah, I don't really want to say that there's a problem with the O-ring, so I'll kind of hide it in here. And that was a disaster. But it happens all the time. So, right type. The other thing, you ever get somebody hands you something to read, it's on 8.5 by 11, and it's just one solid paragraph. Yeah, I get those all the time. So what do you think when you see that? My first thought, really, do I have to read this? Can I skim it? I like the president of CSI, but he's right to emails in the one solid paragraph. And I tell my wife, I said, I submitted to AI and summary, and you know what he said. But he's a nice guy, but sometimes you need to, I remember I learned in my writing class, you have a topic sentence, you need to have a concluding sentence, and then in between. That's a bunch of baloney.
Good.
Okay? So really it is. So what you need, I have experimented with this. So when I get some of these journal articles, some of these educators would go on and on and on. One full column, one paragraph, and the next column, the same paragraph. So I went in there and I said, That's about an inch, so I hit a hard return. That's about an inch, hit a hard return, hit a hard return. Every inch I hit a hard return. Nobody noticed. I made sure the sentence, I didn't hit it in the middle of the sentence, but I hit it at the end of the sentence. And guess what? It looked more readable, and nobody ever noticed. I did that every time I got a manuscript. It was a long paragraph. My rule was I'm gonna go in and I'll measure about an inch down, I hit a hard return and make another paragraph. And, they just don't notice. The visual appearance of your writing is more important than, did you follow the rule about how a paragraph's supposed to be written? Say that for English 101 or 102, to make those instructors happy, right? Okay, so don't tell anybody I'm down on English 101, 102. All right, so what do you do when you get stuck? Yeah, we all get stuck, don't we? First thing is looking at a blank screen or a blank sheet of paper. I was like, oh, what am I gonna say? There's a thing called free writing. You just sit down and just write. Even if it's off topic, just write. Just get some stuff on paper. I do my free writing because I carry around 3x5 cards in my pocket. Every time I come up with an idea, I start writing on a 3x5 card. So at least I've got to start. And so it's a good idea. You can always come, you're not committed to it, you can come back later and you can revise it. But free writing is a great thing. Start small. Start with something you really have a passion about. Think of something that is maybe really meaningful, that's going to be easy for you to write about. Because when you have the success of writing about one, it's going to make it easier for you to continue. And that success builds on success. The other thing I always try to do is when I get to the end of the day and I've written something, I make a few notes about what I want to come back and write about tomorrow. So I have a starting point. Set out a routine, find a place. My routine when I wrote these books, we were raising the family. I got up early because I didn't want to, I didn't want to feel like I was ignoring the kids. I got up early or I stayed up late. It was nice and quiet early in the morning. Nobody likes to get up. So it was a quiet time. I set a routine for that. And I had a place to do it. That's the other thing, is you need a space. This is, when you sit here, this is where I'm going to write. Don't try and do it while your TV's on or while you're trying to do other things, because it's very important. Then the other thing is talk it out. Share your story. Maybe the person next to you, or talk to Marilyn. I talk to Marilyn. Say, there's some things, or she talks to me when she starts writing. Let somebody kind of interview you. They may have a different approach. So that's really important to do, talking it out. For those that would help you get past that blank sheet of paper. Okay, so the art of storytelling. This is what you're going to do. So it's kind of a review. You're going to do your storytelling. So the art of storytelling is you choose something that's interesting that grabs the attention of the reader. But on these books here, I use for the topic the prompt I was given, like this one here. How did you experience Neil Armstrong's first step on the moon? Well, you probably couldn't write it, could you? Probably not. Well, I remember very, very clearly. So anyway, it was the prompts that become the interesting part of the story. So then next, plan your story, identify key events. I made a few notes as I went through that one about Neil Armstrong. Make sure I remembered everything good. And then I went out to the internet and found a picture because NASA put these pictures out there. And I remember when they did that. And so I want to make sure I have the sequence of everything right. So using Google, I can find out the sequence. Let's start with a strong opening sentence. We'll do a little bit of practice writing in here. We want to talk about your opening sentence because that's what grabs people. We'll talk about those a bit more. Provide some clues, build some anticipation, include dialogue. That's important. It doesn't have to be specific, but you want to make it so, like I said, Dr. Lauer said this to me. Use descriptive language, paint pictures with words. And then keep the story moving. Don't go off on a tangent with some unnecessary details. Nobody cares what color the walls were. Unless you're really talking about a house, but you don't need to describe the house. I'm reading a book right now and it's about a trip to the Antarctic. before Shackleton. But the guy that wrote it, he goes off and describes what the snow looks like. And how white it is. I don't need that. I know it's white down at the Antarctic. And I don't need to know what it's felt like or, anyway, he's very descriptive. And I think you just avoid those details. Build up the climax, end with some conclusion. That's how you're gonna know when you're at the end. You conclude your story. Practice telling your stories. That's if you're gonna tell somebody else, practice writing it. Engage your audience by speaking clearly. Your tone comes out in your writing. The greatest compliment is somebody reads something and says, that sounds just like you. That's a real compliment. I have a friend that's Don Aslan. Anybody heard of Don Aslan? A cleaning group. He has his cleaning museum. Well, I had him come over to do a couple of my seminars. I got to know him pretty good. And when you read his books, after talking to Don Aslan, it sounded just like Don Aslan when you read his book. And that's what you want. You don't want to have something that didn't sound like you. And so you write like yourself. Engage your audience, speak clearly, plan before you write, make a few notes. And then once your story, set it down and let it cool. That's important. You'll come back, remember stuff I wrote. I thought at the time it was really good. I was writing research paper. I set it down, come back and look at it. That's a piece of junk. Really had to be honest with myself. I need to rewrite that. Or I'd let Marilyn read it and she said, her famous thing was, I don't understand that. And I'd say, well, you should understand it. I wrote it. But she was right. I need to write it so somebody else understood it. Okay, so your first draft, you always don't worry about it. Don't worry about all the other things, just get it out on paper. And then you can revise. Then you ask for feedback. Feedback from kid, friend, and then proofread. That is the most important thing is proofreading. Because when you're writing things, everything flows through your brain and when you go back and proofread it yourself, you'll put the flow in there and you'll miss words. So the trick is, if you're the only one doing it, is read it backwards. Read one sentence at a time as you read it backwards. That way you do away with the flow. If you really want to proofread it. Okay, so let's take a minute and write. So I've got some paper, if you need some paper. Somebody want a piece of paper? You got a pen, I gave you a pen. I want you to write about what's your favorite food and try and write a line that will grab me and make me want to read it. Make somebody else want to read it. Don't say I have eaten shrimp. Get 2 or 3 sentences down on paper. I know this is not the most ideal writing.
You told us what not to.
No, you're afraid to write, right? Okay, so you continue this, but we'll talk about your first sentence. I'll tell you what my first sentence would be. I would say, I enjoy eating arthropods. Then it gives me a chance to talk about, I like shrimp, right? And then talk about how closely they are related to insects. And something nobody else thinks about, but, or the other thing is, I have a thing about never go to dinner with an anatomist, because they'll tell you every part you're eating. Right? So what was your first sentence? What did you say? How'd you grab us?
When people ask me what my favorite food is, I don't know what to choose.
You don't know what to choose? Is that your first sentence?
Yeah,
You don't have a favorite food?
no,
You have a friend in another class too. She doesn't have a favorite food either. You like everything?
no. I
No?
put what I like and what I don't like, but I don't have.
Oh, okay. Well, what don't you like?
Anchovies and
Escargot? Okay. Well, you can talk about things you don't like because, well, what do you do? What'd you go? What was your first sentence?
my favorite food is Alaskan fresh caught halibut.
Okay, so my favorite food is, you could change, how could you turn that around?
I don't know.
No, you didn't blow it, we're just talking about it, so you can say. I enjoy Alaskan fresh caught food. Fresh caught,
Halibut.
yeah. And there's nothing better than catching halibut and eating it as soon as it comes out of the ocean. Something like that. Okay, what's yours?
I love medium blackened steak,
Medium blackened steak, okay? Medium rare?
medium.
Medium, okay, blackened. What'd you rate?
Steak is yummy.
Steak is yummy, there's, that's a good one, steak is yummy, I'm with you. Steak is yummy and so is shrimp. I like shrimp, steak and shrimp. Serve and church, right? What'd you rate?
I can think of a favorite food, but I said a unique food that I like, so.
Okay, you did food, that's
I
good.
said black salted licorice, what a treat.
Okay, that's good. Now you get a chance to explain black salted licorice. I've heard of salted caramel, but I've never heard of salted licorice. My dad would chew on a piece of licorice all the time. And I mean, it was a really strong stuff too. So, yeah, so you see, there's a lot of things you could do, but do something so it grabs you when you write your story. I know I kind of chose the food because we all know about food. So we can do something quick, right? Okay, some key points to remember then. Your story matters. You've got a unique, you are unique. And there's nobody else gonna tell your story here. So it's worth it, it's worth your time to do it. Once you're gone, nobody knows. You're gonna get an obituary that's gonna sound not like you. Right? All those obituaries sound a whole lot better than the person I knew. Like we're trying to make up for something, right? Use the active voice, and along with using the active voice, get rid of those wordy phrases, right, time. Focus on key moments, we all have those moments. And how do they affect you? That's what you talk about is, what did this do to affect me? Be honest, connect with your readers. Remember who your audience is. Your audience is gonna be your kids and grandkids. Remember that. Your audience is key to what you like, how you like. Okay, some helpful resources. This one, if you want to read it, this is a really, really great book. This is Drunken White. You think a book about writing would be boring. My daughter texted me the other day and said, "Hey, Dad, I just read The Elements of Style." And she said, it was really fun to read. And I can guarantee you, this had a lot of stuff I talked about. The active voice, your tone, you make it your tone, so it sounds like you. And also using, you conserve the words you use, so you don't use those wordy phrases. But it's a great little book. There's some others all about writing about your life. You can read those. There's one that's all about the dash, writing about the dash in your life. That's a good one. The tools. There's tools you can find out on the internet, but the thing I like is I just like a word processor. Any kind, Google Docs, Microsoft Word, because going back to the old typewriter, when I wanted to move paragraphs around, it's so easy compared to a typewriter. So I have a real appreciation for word processing. And it's, you can store your stuff online, you can use the word, when you type with Storyworth, it stores online, so we always know where your documents are. So, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're done for the day, right?
Hey.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Okay,
But I thought, I'm sure I'm making it.
yeah. Well, it's, you know, it's,
I can see I write in the passive tense. And I started to write that. I thought, oh.
I didn't go over what you read because that's not the way I like to read.
Oh, yeah,
We see it.
and I changed. I was sending all these questions and I thought, wait a minute. I gotta start chronologically, that's how I do it.
Okay, well, some people that way.
But I think the questions that fit in one of those
And
categories.
then chronological. But now you can go back and you can modify this question too.
Yes, yeah.
And this is good too. And or you can, my daughter modified something for me too. Not the question.
Yeah, or I just change the question to something else.
Yeah. Or I didn't like that, so I think sometimes it was, what was your one favorite thing? We talked about one thing, I didn't have one thing.
Right.
I said, what were you, or what, how many favorite things you have? Talk more about favorite things, more. But it gives you a real good accomplishment
I like it.
when you get a printed copy.
And I like it. They're short, they're short.
Yeah,
I like that, like
yeah.
you said. Nice. Oh, you think of picture, I didn't think of picture.
Yeah.
Something to
It's
it.
interesting.
Nice.
Well, I get rid of these. Yeah. Good.